Now, glossa is a very important type of text. So glossa, ASL, which is, American Sign Language, Dog Latin, and Pig Latin are all forms of corrupted Latin. Legally speaking, pure true Latin binds. The way of the law of the land and common law follows the pure Latin language. In the judicial system, legally, it's the only one that holds legal countenance. These other types of language, the glossa, ASL, Dog Latin, are all considered a foreign language, and they're not binding, okay? So the Chicago Manual of Styles is what identifies glossa and sets the precedent for what is the language of the law. And that's not to be confused with the Chicago Manual of Style, okay? The S makes all the difference. So they've placed a lot of different things to kind of gear you away from finding truths. And the Chicago Manual of Styles and the Black Law Dictionary, which we'll get into, set the precedent for what is legally binding in terminology. Now, glossa basically is all uppercase text. A lot of the symbols that we perceive look very similar to our alphabet. And so most of us miss when a symbol is being used, we presume it to be a letter, but it happens often. Now, when you see any uppercase words or text written in any legal form, whether it be your driver's license, a corporation, in court, what have you, ultimately, that uppercase word, that glossa, since it's a foreign language, is technically redacted. It means that anything you read in the uppercase form, essentially you're going to remove that from the text. It does not actually apply. And there lies the biggest trick of all. So we've all heard of Sins, right? So the Sins initially were the Builders Guild, right? They built Rome. And as they built Rome, they placed symbols in all buildings and edifices, which we also see to this day. Now, the Freemasons were the ones who implemented that symbols ultimately usurp the descriptive text documents. So they're the ones that use that trickery, just like the X in the Texas, that's actually to trick you into thinking it's an X, but it's actually a symbol, right? So when you agree to be a resident or a citizen of Texas under that symbol, what am I agreeing to, right? Am I adopting this, right? So you also need to, no document is a fraud. It is what it is, okay? The only fraudulent thing that can be of a document is that it's presented in a way it's not intended to. Now, a fabulous example for any of us that know, we've seen the goat before. Now, the goat in English language is an animal, right? We all know that. But the goat in legalese, or in black law, is a sewer, right? The definition is, it's a man-made channel from which water flows from land to the sea. So the goat represents the sewer, or the underworld, in which comes up to usurp the land. That's why you see a goat so much, because it's saying that the sewer, the underworld, is overtaking the land. Basically, the dead usurps the living, right? And this is what this is. All of this is about taking away your life and turning it into something that's dead, that doesn't actually exist. So in the eyes of the state, in the eyes of the nation, you don't exist as a living being. You are a dead corporate entity. And that's something important to understand. A dead, a debt, a debtor. And I was thinking on the sovereignty piece. And I realized that I'm not willing right now to take on the load of engaging in full sovereign access. I'm aware that that's important. It's something I want to do in my life. And I'm also aware of what resistance that will bring, right? Now, I deem it an easier case if I'm somebody living already off the grid and I'm going to start filing and redacting and doing all these things. But unfortunately, because I'm in a situation where I need to directly engage with governments of 2 different countries, I'm not sure it's to my benefit if I want to access the specific types of freedom in which I can access through maritime law. If I choose to opt out of maritime law, I may lose those freedoms in addition, right? So that's somewhere I'm at, and I'm not willing to do that yet, right? We all have to kind of decide this for ourselves. Now, the piece in, and I will start the process, but I'm not going to dive in gung-ho right now as I'm trying to shift into a different sector, right, of that type of control in a different country. It's just not worth the risk for me. And I also perceive that while we are born into what I deem as a slave system, we're trapped, right? It's built into it. There's an inversion situation that we're dealing with here. Most of us aren't even aware that it's happening. So at the very least, as we were talking about, is that I think it's very important to understand what is happening and as much as we can, what it is we're engaging in that we haven't been told transparently. Now, we can choose to navigate that any way we want, though I do perceive there's a big difference between the human entrapment and enslavement system that may hold a limitation in certain ways to our person while in this incarnation. That is inevitable. That's what we've been talking about. Now, there are ways to try to beat the system, and we all know that that's going to come with resistance, as obvious it was now that we saw that even Zoom now is filtering these live feeds, right? So to go against the system, you will get back resistance, okay? Though you don't have to opt your soul and spirit and consciousness in to an even grander system that's beyond this human timeline. And that's the piece that I find the most important, that I want to impart to all of y'all, and that is important to me, right? Because I choose to say, okay, I opted into this system simply by incarnating. On a certain level, I knew in a way what I was going into, right? Or at least knew, from an umbrella spectrum. But I do feel that as a spirit and a soul, I have a responsibility to ensure that my quantum energy doesn't get entrapped into any systems or cycles that go well beyond this finite timeline, right? This 90 years, whatever I'm going to get. Okay.